Hi, I'm Phil Pustiowski with FreedomMentor.com, and in this video, I am going to explore the question, is wholesaling real estate ethical? Now, this is the kind of question that gets tucked under the rug in this business, but it's the elephant in the room. It's on so many people's minds. And I certainly want to get your comments on it at the bottom of this video, so definitely get ready to make some comments. And the thing is so few people talk about it that I felt, why not now? Let's talk about it. All right, so let's get started. First, let's define what wholesaling real estate is. It's the process of getting a property under contract and then assigning your interest or reselling the property to a new buyer for more money. So where's the ethical issue in that? Okay, well, let's look at this. What happens in the real world is that oftentimes, I shouldn't say oftentimes, sometimes, the reason why a wholesaler can get a deal so cheap that they can actually get it under contract and then resell it for more money to somebody else is because either, number one, the seller doesn't know any better. They don't know what the property value is. They have no clue. Or number two, they have the wrong view or the wrong understanding of value. You know, depending on which state you're in, Zillow and other free valuation tools can be really inaccurate. So what if the person has an inaccurate view of their property or they just have no clue? The question becomes, is it ethical or are you doing the right thing by getting the best deal possible, negotiating as far down as you can, when you know deep down inside that they could put the property on the MLS with a real estate agent, sell it for a lot more money than you're offering them? That is the potential ethical issue. So what I want to do is I want to break down the two different schools of thought, where people line up on this. And that will illuminate this a little bit more. So let's talk about the first direction. The first direction in the first school of thought is going to be a deal is a deal. A deal is a deal. Now, here's what this school of thought describes. They say, well, if the person agreed to sell their property for that amount, and that's what I'm paying for it, then a deal is a deal. And they further will go into detail and say, well, let's look at business in general. So much of what happens in business is this retail wholesale model, where what you do is you buy something at one price and sell it for more. Let's take a common example. Let's take this little board right here. This board was manufactured by a manufacturer who sold it probably to a wholesaler. The wholesaler bought this board and then sold it to the retailer. And that retailer then sold it to you. And that retailer could have been Target or Office Max, that sort of thing. So if we unpack that, what we see is the manufacturer created it. The wholesaler did nothing but buy it and then resell it to a Target or Office Max, and then Office Max sold it to you for more money. So in both of those cases, the wholesaler and the retailer made their money by buying low and then selling a little bit higher. So they were doing the retail wholesale model, which is what this is. You know, so the argument is a deal is a deal. If the person wants to sell the property and they're happy with the amount that you negotiated, if they agreed to it, then a deal is a deal. Make sense? Okay. Now there's another school of thought. The other school of thought is give the seller their options. Now, what does that mean? That is the idea that if you know a property could sell for more money on the MLS, considerably more money, then this school of thought says, well, at least share that with them and say, look, you might get more money if you listed this with a real estate agent. I'm a real estate investor. I'm here to make a profit. I'm here to make money. So I just want you to be aware of that. And you also have some other options. You could consider leasing it, or you could consider, and so you go through their options. Now, proponents of this would say, this is what they would argue. They would say, look, if you look at foreclosures or REOs, banks list those properties on the MLS. I mean, this is literally mandatory unless they sell them in bulk to some bulk REO buyer. By and large, all foreclosures are sold on the MLS. Why? Why, if it was such a good deal, if they were so distressed and they just had to unload their properties, why don't banks just sell these properties to wholesalers? Why do they put them on the market on the MLS? Well, the answer is pretty obvious. Because the multiple listing service, the MLS, that is the marketplace for real estate. And therefore, if they get the property on there, then that property gets exposed to the most number of buyers. And the more buyers that look at a property, the more you get a market. And then the more you get a market, the higher the price you're going to get, or the more accurate to retail value that price is going to come. Does that make sense? Okay, so giving the seller their options would entail giving them the options of what they could do with the property. And then therefore, if they still want to sell the property to you for a really cheap price, well then at that point, you have shared their options, and so you've absolved yourself of any ethical issue if there is one. Does that make sense? Okay, now there's an interesting practical side to both of these issues. Both of them can potentially lose deals. Here's how. If you are under the a deal's a deal school of thought, there are going to be times when you negotiate a seller to the bone. I mean, you do all the tricks for negotiating. Is that the best you can do? I don't know if I can do that. Would you take... You know what I'm talking about, right? This whole spiel with how to negotiate better. So if you did a great job negotiating, and you just cut them to the bone, then remember that real estate doesn't close right away. It usually takes a couple of weeks. It can take a month. So between the time that you got it under contract to the time that you actually close on it, there's several weeks. And that owner, that seller, you know, could be hanging out with a friend, they could be going to dinner with family, and they could be mentioning, hey, I got rid of my home. To which, what are people going to ask? How much did you sell it for? And they're going to say, well, I sold it for $50. And what could happen is the person at the table go, what? You did what? You sold it for $50? You're an idiot. And they just go crazy. I've seen this happen. I'm not exaggerating. And so you could lose the deal, because what happens is if a person feels like they're being taken advantage of, if they feel like you have pulled the wool over their eyes and you're stealing their property, they will retaliate. They may hire an attorney. Who knows all what they'll do. And so we have seen it time and time again. If you cut a seller to the bone, sometimes they feel like they're being taken advantage of and they want to sell it for more. True story. I had a seller tell me one time, way back in the day, told me, and because you'll learn that I've kind of changed my view on this of where I stand. But back in the day, I was all about a deal is a deal. I had a seller one time tell me, he said, Phil, if I ever find out where you live, I'm going to take a shotgun and blow your head off. I'm not kidding. They told me that. And it was over a difference of $6,000. True story. So the difference was I had found the new buyer for more money, and I was going to make $6,000, and the new buyer knew the original seller. And so they called each other and they said, well, who's this Phil guy? Well, Phil's the guy that was going to buy it from me for $30. And this guy said, well, I'm buying it from Phil for $36. This guy goes, so Phil's not buying it? The guy goes, no, Phil's not buying it. Phil's just flipping it to me. And they tried to get together and they tried to get me out of the way. So that's what can happen with a deal is a deal. All right, now where do you lose deals here? Well, it's obvious. If you tell a seller, hey, look, by the way, you could probably get a lot more money by hiring a real estate agent. They'll just stick it on the MLS, and you know, it may take a little bit longer, but you'll find a buyer, or just drop the price on the MLS and you'll find a buyer right away. You may lose a couple deals because they may say, that's a good idea. That's what I'm going to do. And when I made the switch from a deal is a deal to now where I'm at, I kind of take this approach more. I've lost some deals that way because they take me up on the idea. They go with a different option than me. But I will say this. The other thing that happens though is when I give them their options, what ends up happening is I do produce a really, really good relationship whereby they may send me referrals, or they may be more committed to working with me. They may say, you know, Phil, thanks for shooting me straight. I really appreciate that. you know, I am going to sell it to you. I do realize I can make a few extra bucks by listing it with a real estate agent on the MLS, but you know, I don't want to mess around with people, you know, traipsing through my property. I don't really want to deal with the real estate agent. I really want to get this done now. So I'm willing to, you know, I'm willing to take a little bit less to work with you. And that happens. You know, and that for me is a great feeling because I know that they're not going to back out at the end and they're going to be there with me until the deal closes. And also they become a great referral source. You know, friends of a feather flock together. You would be surprised how many people who are motivated sellers know other motivated sellers. Okay, so that is wholesaling and real estate ethical question pieced together. And I want to hear your thoughts. Because I'm not passing judgment either way. Whether you are a deal's a deal or you are on this side, either one is okay. But I do want to hear your point of view, and if there's anything I missed, and there are things that that need to be explored to fully color this subject of ethics and wholesaling. All right, well, I'm Phil Pustiowski with FreedomMentor.com. Thanks so much for being on this video. There's a link just below this video that'll take you to the page where I have an article about this as well. A lot of good comments coming on the blog post of this video as well. So check those out, and then you can head to our website, FreedomMentor.com, grab a whole lot of great trainings on real estate investing. And thanks so much for being on the video. I'll see you on the next one.